Hey everyone, happy Monday. I don't know how you feel about Mondays. Sometimes they're hard. Sometimes they don't affect you. Sometimes they're great. I wanted to jump on real quick and I wanted to talk about something that affected me that may help you. There was one of those memes that goes around and talks about everybody's zodiac sign. And I want you to know that when you're doing self-work, stuff resonates. It hits a little different. Because, your guides and, your ancestors, they're like, oh, you're doing self-work. Let me hit you with all this stuff so you can, reflect and unpack. So it was really funny. So this meme is going around, and it was like big Pisces energy. And it said, babe, what's wrong? You haven't been embodying my idealistic version of you. And I'm not going to tell any stories. It hit a little different. It hurt because it resonated a little too much. And I had to go within and I had to unpack some stuff because I really feel like... So I'm going to say something that sounds really super idealistic and romantic and weird. But I really feel like the past few months, my self-work has shifted towards how I function within relationships. And not just romantic relationships, but to prepare me for my next level of relationships, which means like business relationships, family relationships, things like that. Okay, so hear me out. So here's what happened. So I see this meme and I start reflecting and I start doing some shadow work on it. And I've come to this realization that I'm a 40-year-old woman and I don't think I've ever actually been in love with a person. And I've been married. Now, I have been in love. But I think that if I'm being completely honest and transparent, I have only ever loved somebody's potential or the highest version of themselves, which really sucks for the person that you're with. And in no way, shape, or form is this me excusing any transgressions in any relationships and trying to take blame for them as my own. But when you fall in love with somebody, right? And it's so funny because I have given this advice to a million friends over the past 20 years. When they call me to tell me, oh, he opens the jar of pickles this way, or he does this and she does that, and I don't like this and I don't like that. I always say, if this person never changed, never, if they were the exact same person they are today, 20 years from now, could you stay in a relationship with them and be happy? It's always what I've always said, but I have never sat in that long enough to basically take my own advice. So, my guides were talking to me and I'm like giving it to everybody else. Hey, you want this? You want this? Because I don't want it. So I had to reflect on that. I have only ever loved the potential of the highest version of any man that I've ever been with. And that's a really hard expectation for anybody to live up to. And I'm not saying that I didn't love them where they were at. Obviously, there was some part of me that may have loved them who they were currently, but that is not who I was willing to be with. That is not who I wanted. I did not want to be with the version of you that I met. I didn't want that. I wanted to be with the version of you I thought you could cultivate and be. Who I saw, the potential I saw. And the problem is when you do that in a relationship, oftentimes you rob them of their journey on accident, right? Because here I am, I know that if you just do X, Y, and Z, you can be X, Y, and Z, right? So that's what I'm pushing you to be, right? But I'm not really loving you where you're at and comfortable where you're at. And I know you feel that energy. Because even if I'm not saying it, you are feeling my disappointment. that you are not walking in the idealistic version that I've created of you, that I've foreseen, that I think needs to happen. And that's a really hard place to be. And then I had to decide, or I had to figure out why. Why am I that person? Or why is this my jam? Why is this something that I do? Right? Why do I only love the idealistic version of the people that I'm with? And I have to be honest with you and tell you that, like, motherhood has changed that dynamic and done some shadow work, some good shadow work on this, because, you know, you may become a parent and you have this plan for this kid, right? The first time they pick up a pen, you think they're a writer. The first time they cook a meal, they're going to be a chef. The first time they paint a painting, they're going to be an artist, right? And they throw a football 50 yards, they're going to be a football star, right? So you have all these things in your mind of what a kid is going to be, right? And what ends up happening is, you know, life. People have their own journeys. And your little box that you want them to fit in for your ideals doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? So, like, what I had to do parent group therapy as a parent with children with mental illness. And I remember a mom said something so profound to me. She said, you know, when we started as a parent, our celebrations were for straight A's and college applications and for this and for that, right? And she said, and we had to shift so that we were celebrating things like taking a shower, eating, waking up and getting out of bed, moving from the bed to the couch, because it's my child's journey, not my expectation of their journey, right? So what happens with that is it prepared me, I guess, you know, as that thing's altered, to reflect on, you know, relationships with people, right? Romantic relationships. I fell in love with their potential and what I saw and wanted them to be, and I didn't love them where they were at, and I wasn't comfortable with where they were at. And if that's where they were comfortable, I didn't want to be with them. And that's okay, except for I created the dynamic that it was very judgy. Like, I was very judgy on, if that's where you wanted to stay, I don't have time for that, right? But the answer is, you know, people move at the pace that they're meant to move at, and that's not my space, my place to put that. So why am I so scared to love people where they're at, right? I mean, the answer is because it's fucking terrifying. Ooh, I was really going to try not to cuss in this video. Because it's freaking terrifying, right? Because if I love you where you're at, I risk stagnation. I risk settling for energy that I don't want to be a part of, right? And a lot of that has to do with, you know, when you were growing up, how many happy couples did you see? Good, Michelle. I'm glad. Like, for me, it was hard to love somebody. I don't want to love you where you're at because I run the risk of being unhappy. Right? Like, this is my mentality. But the answer is, I just have to, you can love somebody where they're at and they're growing, and just make sure that their energy matches yours, if that makes sense. You know, I don't need to fall in love with this idealistic version and potential of you that I need you to be in order for me to be comfortable with you. I need to find somebody where they're at I'm okay with for the next 20 years. And the answer is I haven't found that person. And that could totally be because I wasn't looking for that person. Because I was operating in an egotistical way from a broken ego where I wanted to help get somebody where they needed to be. I want to be a part of your process. I want to tell you I saw potential in you and grow you so that I can somehow take ownership in the part that was played. And that's, it's not really healthy. So I wanted to share this with you because it's really super important to also believe people where they are. Like, you know, my youngest father told me he didn't want to be a dad again. You know, and I waited for 5 years. I don't want to say I waited to be with him. I waited for 5 years for him to decide he wanted to maybe be in my kid's life. And then I realized, like, the whole time he had told me. He told me when I saw 2 blue lines, I don't ever want to be in her life. And I couldn't understand that because not just I could never do that, but when I see the potential of him as a father, right? But that's not, he told me who he was, where he stood. And I was like, but you would be such a great dad. And you are such a great dad to your other kid. That don't matter. That don't matter. You know, like, people are going to do and take as long as they need to on their journey. And the answer is, like, it's just, you have to love somebody from the place of if they never change, can you wake up and enjoy that relationship? And I'm not saying that you can't be annoyed and pissed off. Like, homie, I'm not saying find somebody whose energy matches you so perfectly that there's no arguments. That doesn't exist. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying to you is if that person never changed, can you still look at that person and be like, I'm happy you're in my life? Right? And if not, why? Did you fall in love with their potential? Did you fall in love with an idealistic, unrealistic version of them that you decided they needed to be? You know? And why is that? Because loving people where they're at, for me, is scary and stagnant, right? But it's not. It's not, right? That's just, you have to remember when you create these boundaries at first, it's based on your childhood. It's based on being a kid, right? So you have to understand that some of these things that you just subconsciously operate in are based on things you were taught as a kid and processing them with the knowledge of a child, right? So like if you have a perfectionist as a parent, right? So how you translate that is you can't be with somebody who's not always striving for greatness. But what does striving for greatness mean, right? Like sometimes, you know, like in the case I'm talking about, like I don't think that I saw a woman actually happy in a relationship, right? So like realistically, how they were navigating relationships terrified me. I don't want to do that. I don't want to, when you're like, oh, that's just how he is. That's scary, right? But I'm operating from little kid Ryan. Little kid Ryan is like, that's scary. So how do I process that? I only want a man that strives for greatness and can grow into the person I want him to be. But I need to be a part of that process so that I get some of my self-worth from that. It's just messy, girl. It's just messy and exhausting. And that's why I'm fucking single. Damn it, I cussed again. Anyways, so I just wanted to jump on here and share this with you guys because I know that if I'm going through this, right, other people have obviously felt this as well, right? Where You're falling in love. And it's this thing that we all talk about, but we don't actually apply it to our daily life. You know what I mean? Like, we don't apply this to our daily life. We talk about, like, oh, don't fall in love with people's potential. Fall in love with who they are. We don't talk about what that looks like. What that looks like is every day that you spend with them right now. If every day for the next 20 years look like that day, can you hang? Because that's marriage to that person. Are you okay with that? And if not, why? And if yes, cool. But don't lie to yourself. Because 20 years is going to feel real long if you lie to yourself. So, I just wanted to reach out and talk about what this looks like. Don't fall in love with people's potential or their higher selves. Because this may not be the lifetime that they hit that. This may be the preparation lifetime. And now, you know, you making them miserable, you miserable, everybody miserable. Everybody mad. Because they don't fit in this box, this unrealistic box that you created for them so that you felt safe. You know. So I love y'all. And I want you to reflect on that. Because Lord knows I've had all week reflecting on it. So, and these don't just apply to romantic relationships. Remember, these apply to friendships, right? These apply to cousins and sisters and brothers and mothers and fathers, right? Like, this applies to all relationships, co-workers, bosses, right? All these people have their own shit, right? Right? They all have it, you know. And are you disappointed because your expectation was unreasonable? Or you needed them to be an idealistic version of them that doesn't exist? You know, this literally applies to everything. You know, I as a young mom was like, I know that I accomplished great things as a mother when all of my children will be in college. And the answer is, that's BS. I got 2 kids that decided to not do college, and guess what? They're fine. They're fine. You know, they didn't need to follow the roadmap that I created for them. They have their own roadmap, and it's literally just my job to check on them while they're driving it. Okay? So I love you guys. I love you, Michelle. And I will talk to you guys later, okay? Have a great week.